I'm Jasmine, and I am the collaborating poet in Lost Worlds, which is Project 40's upcoming project. It features three artists, an illustrator, a photographer, and a poet, and I'm the poet part of it. So every Friday we put up a process piece or a blog post that kind of gives a little bit more insight into the storyboarding and the concept process for this project. And 2 weeks ago we heard from Chloe, who is our photographer, and last week we heard from Grace, who is our illustrator. So this week I will tell you a little bit more about Lost Worlds, the concept and how we came up with it, and also the mediums of poetry that we're going to use and the visual presentation of this project. So number one, Lost Worlds, the concept. I think we were originally very interested in this idea of the in-between. As Asian artists, as Asians who live in not Asia, I think many of us struggle with or deal with and experience being caught between two types of tensions, if you want to put it that way. And these tensions can be between two kinds of worlds almost, two different kinds of homes, two different kinds of belonging, two different kinds of languages, two different kinds of cultures, two different kinds of identities, two different kinds of stories. And basically, if you want to simplify it, you could say that we're basically stuck between this weird time and weird space. So when we were talking about time and space and we were talking about languages, we noticed something really interesting, which is that time and space in Mandarin share a word. And what I mean by that is time in Mandarin is 时间, and space in Mandarin is 空间. And so they share this word, 间, and the definition of 间is that it's the place where two things meet. So you can imagine this as 间, but 间also means the space between two spaces, and so you could see it like this. And so when you think about that, that gets kind of weird. So is it a place where something meets or something doesn't meet? Is it a space between spaces, or is it a space where two spaces meet? And the answer, of course, is that it's both. And I think that it's a really good way of starting to look at how we understand where we come from and where we belong and how we inhabit the worlds, the different worlds that we live in. So Jian became kind of the departure point for our thought process and how we start to visualize the photography and the illustrations. So my part in this project is the poetry part. And basically what I've decided to do for this project is we created a survey about kind of these concepts of time and space and being lost and our ideas of where we belong and things like that. Created a little survey and I sent it out to a bunch of people. And they answered them. And basically, I took their answers and I turned them into poems. So the way we're going to present these photography, illustration, poetry things is in the form of a postcard. So the front of the postcard will have the photography with the digital illustrations on top of them. Then when you flip around the postcard to the back, you will get the poem where you usually have space to write your message. And then on the other side of it, you will have the empty address lines and a little box for the stamp. So we decided to go with postcards because if you think about it, postcards are a very good example of this kind of paradox, if you will. A postcard is something you send from one place to another place, and it's always supposed to be representing the place where it comes from, but its real belonging or its real function as a postcard is to be going to wherever it's sent. And so does it stay? If it stays where it's from, it's not really a postcard, or it's an unused postcard, so it's not fulfilling its purpose or its function. But at the same time, when it arrives at its location, it's never really part of its location. It's supposed to be gesturing and pointing back towards where it came from. And so the postcard is this really tricky kind of conundrum and it really reflects, we think, the kind of experience of Lost Worlds. And of course, Lost Worlds is, if you notice, the L is always in a bracket or parentheses. And the reason for that is you're supposed to read the L as present and absent at the same time. And so really this project is called Lost Worlds, but it's also called Lost Words. And so that plays really well into our idea of postcard, as the message is a poem that is written by someone in a different format that I have then taken and manipulated and changed and reformatted and edited into a poem. And that poem will be sent by one person to a different person. And so really there's about 7 people involved in this process. And it's kind of fun. It's a very interesting way to look at art, and it's a very exciting thing that we're trying to do. And so we hope that you will support our project. Yay!